with your child about this and saying something can be done. I see people at all levels of society, and as you know, addiction is no respecter of wealth or privilege place in society. It really is. It really is not. So
what about the other way around?
Continue on Great Southwest Road for 3/4 of a mile.
The child having to really get a parent to a better place, having lived
exactly the same thing applies. And we also see that. So it's keeping the dialogue going. It's pointing out, look, Mum, look, Dad, can you see what's happening here? But you can do something about it. They may not want to go to see the NHS addiction service. They may not want to go see a private psychiatrist. They can go to AA. There is help available, and often people don't want to go to see a doctor. Like myself, they want to go and see an experienced therapist. Many of the people I see do not go into the primary.
In 1/4 of a mile, take the exit towards Heathrow Airport.
I'm talking to people, many of whom are in recovery themselves, and there's nothing more powerful, as I think you heard there from young Callum, it's young Callum now, that about hearing someone who's been in that situation himself
Take the exit towards Heathrow Airport.
say things that you will not hear from a therapist who's not been in that situation, or a doctor. And that's the power, of course, of AA.
In 1/4 of a mile, keep left at the fork to continue towards Southern Perimeter Road.
the other thing that struck me is how do you distinguish between something that can be an obsession or a habit and something that's an addiction? What I mean by that, and a psychiatrist said this to me once that I have huge respect for. He said that, look, often you find with addictive personality...
Keep left at the fork.
...that it's trying to move from something that can be really detrimental to your health, sex, gambling, alcohol, to yes, what remains an obsession, like going to the gym, or maybe in politics. But how do you make that transition to something that still is something that you're pretty hooked on, but it's healthy?
In 1/4 of a mile, at the roundabout, take the second exit and stay on Southern Perimeter Road.
Your life. And millions of people can be social drinkers and have a few beers or a few gins or a few whiskies every now and then. But it's the consequences to your physical health, mental health, your relationship health. I've had a bloody enough of you, get out. To your work health, you're stinking of booze, you can't work here anymore. Those kind of things. That's what makes the difference between an obsession on something you do, perhaps slightly to excess, and something that becomes an addiction. It's a subtle difference, but clearly in the case of alcoholism, people who are drinking cannot stop despite the consequences. Their mothers, their fathers, their children with responsibilities, they can't stop. And the other thing to say about parents who are often in a desperate situation, it's perfectly reasonable for them to say, or for a partner to say,
Continue on Southern Perimeter Road for 1.5 miles.
Sometimes we do interventions whereby an experienced therapist will go round with a member of the family and say, look, do you realise what's happening? And often that can bring about changes, whether it's to do with drugs, alcohol, sex addiction, any other kind of addiction, or gambling, which is never talked about in this country. It's an absolute disgrace. Gambling, absolutely devastating to families. Government doesn't put down about it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Noel Campbell, consultant psychiatrist at the Priory Hospital, for words of advice there. I'm going to come to your calls in the next half hour on this issue of addiction. I want to hear your stories. Thank you so much for calling in. Please call in and share them with us. You're listening to David Manley. It's 6:30 and it's time for the news with Tim Arthur.
The University of Oxford is resuming its clinical trials of a potential vaccine for coronavirus. 18,000 people around the world have already received the vaccination, but it was paused after a volunteer fell ill in the UK. We're being warned against meeting in large numbers for a party weekend before new restrictions come into force. From next week, social gatherings of more than 6 people will be banned in much of the UK,
quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the first exit and stay on Southern Perimeter Road.
Limited is regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Welcome back to more space this autumn with Southeastern. As more passengers come back to travelling by train, our teams are here so you can feel welcome. We've boosted our services up to 98% of our pre-COVID timetable and reworked it to give you more space, with over 900 extra carriages each weekday. Alongside frequent antiviral cleaning of our stations and trains, there's hand sanitizer at our busiest stations, helping you travel with confidence.
Exit the roundabout onto Southern Perimeter Road.
Railway.co.uk/travel with confidence.
In 200 yards, at the roundabout, take the third exit onto Stanwell Moor Road, A3044. Exit the roundabout onto Stanwell Moor Road.
Buy your next Ford car or commercial vehicle safely at a good price. Arrange finance and even deliver to your door. So for total peace of mind, click with us today at hainesford.co.uk. Always driving value.
David Larry on LGC.
Continue on Stanwell Moor Road for 1 mile.
Back to your calls on addiction in a moment, and thank you for calling in such wonderful numbers. But I've got Simon Marks, who's the LBC's US correspondent, and I want to get the latest from the United States in this really very important election cycle. Simon.
In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the second exit and stay on Stanwell Moor Road, A3044.
Telling Bob Woodward in one of those conversations that even then he knew that COVID-19 was 5 times deadlier than seasonal flu, and even then he knew that COVID-19 could be spread through the air. So I think everyone at the White House is waiting to see whether there's more explosive material that has not so far been put into the public domain. We do have a sense of what Bob Woodward is going to be saying in that interview on 60 Minutes tomorrow night. Here's an
Exit the roundabout onto Stanwell Moor Road. In a quarter of a mile, turn left onto Colnbrick Bypass A4.
It's clear that the President knows what it stands for, but he's not sharing that with the public at that time.
Yes, this is the dreaded President of the United States with a duty to warn.
Turn left onto Colnbrick Bypass A4.
If they get the feeling that they're not getting the truth, then you're going down the path of deceit and cover. And listeners of
Continue on A4 for 2 miles.
cover-up by Bob Woodward, that's never good. He's the veteran Washington Post journalist who, together with Carl Bernstein, brought Richard Nixon down back in the Watergate era because he discovered the cover-up that the White House was engaged in then. So this has been a deeply wounding few days for President Trump. Self-inflicted wounds these, because remember, we now know that on some occasions he would just call Bob Woodward unexpectedly to shoot the breeze. I think thinking naively that he had some kind of an intellectual equal in Bob Woodward, and also someone who was more of a friend and an investigative journalist. So it's an extraordinary situation in which he finds himself. The question really, though, is can Joe Biden capitalize
son's addiction to alcohol. Rachel, tell me your story.
Oh, Mr. Larry, thank you very much for taking my call, and a huge fan, brother.
Thank you.
I'm a bit nervous. Yeah, I felt compelled to call really, because well, I'm in recovery myself, and when I heard Alistair talking about, tough love and how to deal with a child who's an addict, I was just thinking about what I'd put my parents through, really. Absolute hell. And a lot of people around my family criticised my parents for sticking by me. They sort of said that they were enabling me with my drinking. But if my parents had thrown me out, there's absolutely no doubt I wouldn't have survived. Because I think it's slightly different sometimes with girls and boys as well. I mean, I'm a Asian woman, quite small. I wouldn't survive on the streets for a night. But anyway, so I think my story basically is there's a lot I wanted to say really. I'm from a good family. My dad's a doctor. I'm a doctor myself. I've spent a lot of time thinking about why.
Have you been able to continue working, Rachel?
No, I tried to continue to work, but it was my drinking got too bad in the end, and I had to resign from my job, and slowly but surely I'm trying to get my career back on track. So dealing with the consequences from the addiction is difficult.
When did you start drinking, Rachel? Callum talked about starting at 10.
Yeah, my first drink was at 16. I was quite a late starter. And I sort of knew that there was something not quite right with me. We call it the stinking thinking. Callum was talking about, that our ways of thinking is skewed. And my drinking just sort of, I ended up doing 2 degrees. I sort of had an excuse to drink at uni. It was work hard, party hard, and it was just the kind of normal thing to do. And I'm in my late 30s now, so that was in the noughties, and it was sort of towards the end of medical school. I knew that there was something wrong because I was crossing this invisible line of just sort of needing alcohol. And I've spent a lot of time thinking whether it's genetic, is it my upbringing? But the more I've been in AA, in recovery, the more I've spoken to my own psychiatrist.
And you've been in recovery now for how long?
I was 21 months sober yesterday, which is the longest I've done.
Well done. Congratulations to you. Well done. Keep going. You said you put your parents through hell. I mean, just give us a sense of what that involved.
That involved when I went up to rehab twice. I was working in Birmingham before, and they had to go and pack all my stuff up, bring it back. That's just a very small example. Towards the end, I was either coming home in an ambulance, or being brought home.
In 200 yards, at Langley roundabout, take the second exit onto the M4 slip road to Maidenhead, Reading.
Progress very quickly, and they also say that in women sometimes it does gets a hold of them a lot quicker. And in the 5 years from when I first went to AA and rehab and trying to get sober, the progression was very quick. I've been trying to stop drinking. I was trying to do recovery.
Exit the roundabout onto the slip road.
For other people, but by the time when I knew that I really was an alcoholic and the denial had gone, I couldn't really stop. It just gets a hold of you. I was really trying to stop drinking. I was going to meetings. So when I say that I put my parents through hell towards the end of when I drank, I felt I would turn into. I was just nasty. I was violent. Drink driving.
Continue on M4 for 3 miles.